What if the thing that makes you different is actually your greatest asset? What if success isn't about titles or image, but about showing up with no edits and no filters? For me, it was about my rainbow roots and finding success through authenticity. I spent nearly 20 years in political consulting, helping candidates get elected, advising campaigns, and working behind the scenes of some pretty big moments in American politics. And for the longest time, I thought that in order to succeed in that world, I had to play a part. I created this version of myself I'll call Professional Chris. He kept things neutral, he wore the blazer, I said things like, let's circle back. Somehow I meant it. And to most people, he seemed polished and put together. But for me, he was exhausting. Because the further I got to trying to be that version of success, the further I felt from myself. It wasn't until I started rooting myself in authenticity that I found out and realized what success actually means. Success isn't about who you pretend to be. Success is about leaning into who you already are. I grew up in a very traditional setting. I went to an all-boys Catholic school, and then I went on to Villanova University. So Catholic, even the Pope went there. No, really, the Pope graduated from Villanova in 1977. But after college, I did exactly what I thought I was supposed to do. I got the right job. I married a woman. I bought a house. I got a dog. I had what most people would call the picture-perfect life. I told myself I was being smart and strategic. But really, I was miserable. Because when you're constantly editing yourself, you're not growing, you're hiding. And I was doing that in almost every aspect of my life. I want to share a story with you I call my Tale of Two Conventions. In 2004, I was working for a congressman from New Jersey who was in a tough re-election fight that year. The Democratic National Convention was in Boston, and the congressman wanted somebody from the campaign to go with him. It was suggested that I go, and I could have, but I didn't. I told myself that it was too unfamiliar, I was too young, too new, but in reality, I was uncomfortable around all those out gay men and women living their full, vibrant lives. It wasn't fear that I was experiencing. It was jealousy. Because of the choices that I had made up to that point, I wasn't one of them. Now, something else happened during that campaign that struck really close to home. Jim McGreevey was the governor of New Jersey, and Trenton, where the capital is, was in the district that I was working in. We were even planning a fundraiser that featured the governor, and I remember having a hard time getting through to his staff. Well, it turned out there was a reason, because a few days later, Jim McGreevey would get up in front of the cameras and publicly come out as gay. His announcement came in the wake of a scandal that involved an affair with a political appointee, and he had to resign just a few days later. But watching that live, just down the road, was a moment that I will never forget. Because seeing somebody so close to me, someone in power, grapple with the cost of not living authentically, it shook me. And it made me take a long look in the mirror. And then during that campaign, I made a quiet promise to myself that I was going to come out. Now, a couple years later, Jim McGreevey was on a book tour, and I went to one of his events. And I was able to tell him who I was, or remind him who I was, and tell him where I was during the scandal. And I told him that his announcement had prompted me to start my own journey. He didn't say a word. He just put his pen down. He got up, and he gave me this great big bear hug. Now, the Washington Post then wrote a story about us, so I also came out publicly. Not quite a national press conference, but a national publication. But now let's fast forward to 2008. I had come out as a gay man. I had divorced my wife. I had made friends and acquaintances in the LGBTQ advocacy space. And I had found real community. And for the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I was working for a political technology firm at the time, and they were a minor sponsor of that year's convention. So that year, I went. That week, Denver, 2008, was one of the best weeks of my life. And it was especially powerful because I then realized what I had missed. I missed the energy and the hope that comes from being at a political convention, that feeling that anything is possible. But in 2008, I was there. I stood in Mile High Stadium and I watched Barack Obama accept the Democratic nomination for president. And the hope, the energy, the joy, I felt all of it. And I showed up as myself. And that changed everything. After the convention, so after the convention, when I had come out, I felt like there was a great weight just lifted off my shoulders. And we had this feeling that, anything was possible. And because I had showed up as me. Now, fast forward as I'm working, I felt this feeling that anything was possible. So, whatever you're feeling about going into that room, somebody else is carrying that same fear. Now, this talk is not just for LGBTQ folks. It's for anybody who's felt that they had to leave a part of themselves behind just to fit in. Now, I want to pause here because that fear is real. Not everybody gets to walk into every room with the same level of safety. And today, with the relentless attacks on the trans community, on immigrants, on people of color, the message being sent is, you don't belong here. And let's be honest, the effort to remove rainbow crosswalks isn't about traffic safety. And that's not just bad politics. It's not just bad policy. It's hurtful. It's personal. And it's just not right. Now, I recognize my own privilege in this. I'm a white man, and I get to walk into rooms that others are shut out of, or judged in, or even targeted in. But I've learned that privilege isn't something to sit comfortably in. It's something to use, to stand up, to speak out, and to make space. And for those of us who've been able to find our own version of success, we carry a responsibility to use that visibility to help others feel seen, to show people, to remind people that success isn't exclusive, it's expansive. And when we show up visibly and fully, we make it safer for others to do the same. I think about that moment when Jim McGreevey came out in front of the entire nation and declared, "I am a gay American." How many other people besides myself did he inspire? Maybe somebody is watching this talk today and hearing my story and feeling just a little less alone. That's what this is all about. So, my invitation to you is this. Bring more of yourselves into the rooms you walk into, not less. Because when you root yourself in authenticity, not only do you grow, you thrive. And when you thrive, you make it safe for others to thrive too. Your courage will become someone else's permission. Your example becomes someone else's turning point. Because when we root ourselves in authenticity and we show that success, we make it safer for others to do the same. Being gay wasn't something I had to overcome to find success. It was something I embraced to redefine it. And the more that we can redefine success for ourselves, the more we can help others find true success too. Sometimes success isn't just about achievements. Sometimes success is about example. Sometimes success is about example. I think about the words of Susie Orman, a great personal finance expert and proud career woman who found her greatest success by living authentically. She even talks about how she became wildly successful when she first came out. And she says, people first, then money, then things. And that stuck with me. Because for so long, I chased the things, the job titles, the image, the accomplishments. But it wasn't until I started putting people first that everything started to click. Because so many of us spend years building our resumes, reputations, and routines just to prove we're worth something. But the truth is, you don't need the perfect job title or 1 million followers just to be seen. You just have to show up for yourself and as yourself and set an example. I think about that 2008 convention and something that Bill Clinton said that's resonated with me ever since. And he said, people the world over are more impressed by the power of our example than with the example of our power. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that's what I hope we all try to do. Lead by example and live in truth. That same week, Barack Obama said, "This was the moment when we came together to remake this great nation so that it may always reflect our very best selves." And that's the kind of success I believe in. Not one rooted in perfection, but one rooted in realness and in showing up and helping each other be our very best selves. Thank you.